My slide is visible, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll just start. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I am Agilan from EC second year, here to talk about introductory networking, the basics of the network. So here will be our agenda, like what is and why do we need a network, and how to and where do we connect a network, and how data flows with a real world example, and the three-way handshake, and some of the cyber attacks. So let's start with the question: what is a network? Network is generally referred when few things are connected to each other, right? A well-known network is the postal service. Like, say, if you want to write a letter to your friend from Chennai to Calcutta, you have to be first registered to the service, that is the postal service, and they serve as a bridge to between you and your friend, right? In our case, it forms a network, and similarly, in our case, electronic devices are connected to one another, and they form a network. Now, internet is also a network in which small networks inside. It contains very small networks, micro networks, and that it forms a when it forms a very big network. Now, why do we need a network? Basically, to share resources or information. What resources or information that we are sharing? For example, recently you could see in the YouTube, right? Google offers vaccination centers information like in maps, right? So I don't know where my vaccination center is, so I request Google to give me, and it shares the information. Without Google, I have to move towards. I have to ask someone else, right? That is also a network. When I ask someone else to give me information, that is a network, right? We are forming a network. Now, in our case, through what do we share these resources? If I am asking someone, we are speaking through the medium of air, right? We are talking and we are getting the information. But through electronically, how do we share this information? We share this information through a data link. Now, data link can be wires like RJ45 cables or Ethernet cables, etc. Right? And it can also be in the medium of air like Wi-Fi, Li-Fi, etc. Now, in a massive network such as the postal services all across the world, how do we identify you or your client, right? We identify ourselves with our addresses, right? Similarly, every device has two main types of address, namely the IP address and the MAC address. Now, IP address is similar like your name, right? And the MAC address is like your house address. Now, we'll just take a quick look about the IP address. Now, IP means Internet Protocol. The protocols are nothing but they are just a bunch of rules they have to follow. They are just a bunch of guidelines or rules that a device must follow. Now, the basic functionality of the Internet Protocol is to address the host to the destination. Like how IP, when your friend in Calcutta, when he receives your letter, he will see your name and will identify you, right? Similarly, IP address will identify, will basically address the host to the destination. Now, there are two versions of IP addresses, IPv4 and IPv6. V4 is version 4 and V6 is version 6. Now, V4 is what we are mostly familiar with. Um, it is a 4 byte or 8 bits, 4 bytes or 32 bit address. Like it could support 0 to 255 on each bit. So theoretically, it should support 2 power 32 devices. Now, if we have this IPv4, then why do we need IPv6? It's because IPv6 in the it is expected that in 2021 around 50 billion devices will be connected to the internet. So uh, e- 2 power 32 is like around 4 billion, and if 50 billion devices need to be connected means we need a bigger data set, right? So we moved to IPv6, which is a 128 bit address. So theoretically it could support 2 power 128 devices. Now, MAC address, on the other hand, is given by the factory in which the device is made and is also called as the burnt-in address. It is a 6-byte hexadecimal address, and the first six bits refers to the organization which it was made, like Dell or HP, like that. And then the next digits are the identification of the network interface controller or the NIC card. Now, now that we have identified ourselves through our addresses, can we like connect to all the networks? Can I make connection with any network? Actually, not. There are two types of networks, like private networks and public networks, right? We can connect easily to public networks on various IP ranges like A, B, C, D, E, as you could see, and they are used for multiple purposes. And we can't connect to the private IP address range. For example, if we are in like our college, take our college as the example. Now, if someone else from another organization wants to connect to our college net means they will be either login, they will be, there is needs some to be authentication, right? Then only they could become a member of the local area network or the college network, right? Now how do these classes are made? They basically the IP address has two parts, like network part and host part. It is differentiated based on these two digits and these two digits. Now, based on that, A, B, C, D, E are differentiated. Now we have discussed on theory part and how, what, and the why of the networks, right? And now how do we connect to the network? Like we need some devices, right? We'll need some hardware. So we could see some hardware components like server, switches, and router are some basic components. Now, server, what is a server? Server, as the name suggests, it provides some service. Like for example, Google provides a service that it could search any website that you ask for. That's what a server is. Now, what is a client? Client is an hardware or a software that utilizes the service of the server. Now, when we are requesting to say that we are searching youtube.com, we are the client and asking the server. Its service is a Google server we are connecting, and then we are requesting the Google server to give me youtube.com. It will provides its service through its backend, and then we are getting that, right? Now, what is a switch? uh, Switch is a device that connects multiple devices in a network. Like for example, in our take our example as our college, there could be multiple PCs connected to the network, right? Now a switch collects all these networks and pass it to the router. Now what is a router? A router, as you could, as in many homes we'll have, right, modem, a device that connects multiple networks. Now the local area network we have connected successfully, that we are connected the devices in our college to our college network, right? But we have to connect it to the internet, right? Though, so internet is a different network and our college network, local area network, is a different network. So to connect both of these we use a router. Now where do we exactly connect it to a network? Where do we exactly connect to a network? We physically connect to different ports of a network. Like imagine a building and it has multiple doors, right, to the same hallway. Now ports are essentially multiple doors to the same building, but it is important to know that different ports have different functionality as they follow different protocols. As I said before, protocols are essentially different languages that a port follows in order to communicate between networks. Here are some of the common ports and protocols that they follow. For example, 2021 is FTP, 22 is SSH, 23 is telnet, and DNS. Like that, different ports follow different protocols. Now that we have the basics on how a network is arranged, and now we can move into the interior of on how data flows, right? Consider the previous analogy of the postal service. Let us suppose that you are writing a letter to your friend in Calcutta. Now the data here is your letter or the parcel. You package it and you affix a stamp, right, and take it to the post office. Now the post office then decides how to deliver this information and uses suitable means. And then the package gets delivered. Now we must observe keenly that on each step on the process, we are adding some additional information, right? First, we packaged the letter. The raw information was your letter, what you wrote. Now we are additionally we are like adding information like stamp for identification, right? And address we are adding, right? Now each step we are adding some additional information. Then finally, all these additional information, like for the post office also might add some additional information. Finally, all these additional information are discarded by the end user, your friend, right? And he just simply receives the letter, right? Similarly, data from your computer, let it be just a request to view a web page, undergoes various steps and reaches the server, which then responds to your request and delivers the web page that you asked for. Now these steps are undergone in a model, like first we go into post office. There is some architecture or hierarchy, right? Similarly, in networking we have something called as models or layered architecture. There are the two main models are the OSI and the TCP/IP model. I hope everyone knows about this. I'll just quickly run over it. OSI is that open systems interconnections model, and the TCP/IP is that transport control protocol and the internet protocol model, right? Now here in this picture, you could see the various layers of the OSI model: physical, data link, network, transport, session, presentation, and application. When requesting for a website, the data you entered is changed into bits and moves to the physical layer, and followed by it goes through various layers into the application layer. It adds like various headers for the on different layers, like error correction or encryption on the session layer, etc. This the whole process of moving from physical layer to the application layer is called encapsulation. And after your request is found, the opposite process takes place when the uh, server gives you the uh, request reply. Like from application layer, it is converted to the physical layer, right? So that process is called de-encapsulation. Now I'll quickly go through the what each layer does. Now the application layer provides an interface for the networking options that we like. For the login page is the application, like user interface is called the application layer. Then the presentation layer turns the data from the application layer into standardized formats and takes care of compression and encryption protocols. The session layer, as the name suggests, tries to create a stable connection, and once established, the data moves to the transport layer. Like before transporting any data, first there should be a connection established. That is taken by the session layer, and it follows different protocols, as you could see in this picture. Now the transport layer selects what protocol to use for the given data, either TCP or UDP. For example, if you are like as I'm speaking, we are sharing my video, right? It uses UDP protocol because UDP protocol mainly focuses on speed rather than the quality of the network. That's why when you are speaking, when there are multiple people in the video call, there will be grain in the video. Then the network layer is responsible for trying to locate the destination or the where the destination is. The network layer will be recorded, and the data link layer adds the MAC address, as I said before, to give the correct hardware address to the destination. The physical layer is what we know as the Cat5 cables, as I said before. Now, OSI is like a reference model. It is basic and it's a theoretical model. Before OSI model, TCP/IP model was established. It is also called as the connection-based model. Now, what do I mean by connection-based model? It means even before transmitting any of the data, there needs to be a connection between these devices. This process is called as the three-way handshake. Now, as the name suggests, there are three steps involving. Basically, first, the host, your computer, sends a request to ask whether the servers are available, and this request is called as the synchronized bit. Now, basically, I'm asking whether I could attach to your server and we could form a connection. Now, if the server is available or if it is not down, means it will react with that synchronized acknowledgement bit. It will say that okay, I am free. I can connect with you. Then the host sends an acknowledgement bit back to the server, and this forms a complete connection. Here in this picture, you could see the main goal is to get this HTTP response. Before that, we must establish a connection. As you could see here, SYN, SYN-ACK, and ACK packets are. SYN is that synchronous bit, SYN-ACK is that acknowledgement bit, and ACK is that final acknowledgement bit. Now, let me just show. Just a second. Yeah, here I have. Is my screen visible, right? Can you see Wireshark?
Yes, yes, you can continue.
Yeah. In Wireshark, I have just captured a like a sample file. Here you could see it's not getting any request. It's just basically connecting, establishing a connection like SYN-ACK and ACK. Now, yeah. Now, as an attacker, we need to know few cyber attacks based on the networking knowledge that we have gained, right? So the first, there are different kinds of attacks like sniffing, spoofing, poisoning, etc. So we'll just quickly go with sniffing attack. Now, when the data being transmitted are not encrypted without any protection, they can be sniffed or just plainly read by packet capturing tools such as Wireshark, as I showed, right? We can just basically view them by just reading the capture via packet. Now, why now we are using HTTP? Yes, right? Before that, we used HTTP. Now here, yes is that SSL certificate has been added, like encryption has been added. So the lack of encryption is seen in older protocols such as HTTP, FTP, Telnet, etc. Now there are two types of sniffing, mainly active and passive sniffing. Active is where the attacker is in direct contact with the target. Now, in passive sniffing, he is not in direct contact with the target, but instead he is attacking the router or the switches or the hubs where the target has been attached. Now, spoofing attacks. Now, coming on to spoofing attacks, the literal meaning of spoof is to deceive. Now, what does the hacker deceive? He deceives the server by impersonating as the target to redirect the traffic towards his devices. Now, there are various types of spoofing like IP address spoofing, ARP spoofing, DNS spoofing, etc. Now, we look at the IP spoofing. Now, IP spoofing is when the attacker either impersonates or disguises himself in another IP address. IP spoofing is basically done by changing the packet IP address. In the Internet Protocol, there are for version 4 there is a header information, and for v6 there are certain header informations. Now if I could change the header information so that it points to if points to the target, I am basically spoofing myself as the target. Now how can I use this for the denial of service attacks? Here in this picture you could see that this is blue is my target and red is the attacker, right? So I am asking the server as a target, as the target's IP address, to send me some data that I can handle. Now here we can see that there are only one attacker, but if I am using a bot, I could use like 10,000 bots to request the server that please send me this data. Now when instead I'll just ask the request and disconnect from it. Now the server responds the collected data that I requested to the target, and the target cannot handle such amount of data and it crashes. This is the main essence of the denial of service attacks. Now next we are going to move to ARP poisoning. But before we moving to ARP poisoning, um, we must learn about ARP. ARP is known as the address resolution protocol. Before I said IP is like your name and MAC address is like your house, right? But how do we exactly know that you are living in this house? We use ration card or Aadhaar card, like we use some authentication, right? Now basically address resolution protocol is also similar to that. It basically just matches the IP with the corresponding MAC address so that the data packets gets transmitted to the correct hardware. Now, what packets does ARP offer? Like ARP offers a request packet and a reply packet. Now ARP request reaches every device that is in the network. Like for example, if in the school network I am requesting for a website, sorry, the server asks whether ARP whether this MAC address is in this server, and the server asks like every device in the network. So every device can see what ARP request has been got. Now if I could spoof myself as another person's MAC address, I could essentially get his traffic, right? So this is what the man in the middle attack is. If we could disguise ourselves as our target, and the next time when an ARP sends and requests, and the connection will form on our hardware as we have intercepted. Now if we could even take this a step further by sending the data that we received from the server, right? We could be disguised as a server to the host. Basically I'm saying is that we are acting like a server to the victim, and we are acting like the victim to the router. So we are in the man in the middle, and we extract all the traffic. Now the last is the DNS spoofing. Now this attack was prevalent in the 2000s, but not so much now. But before going to DNS spoofing, we need to understand what DNS is. Now every time when we type like when we want to search for a website like say youtube.com, we say youtube.com instead of the IP address of the server, right? This is called as the domain name. youtube.com is the domain name. We simply enter the website's name, right? And the websites that are only registered in the domain name system are stored in the servers called as name servers. Now for example, there are these are the services that are offered by like GoDaddy, right? We are registering our domain name to that so that when someone searches our domain name, it will redirect to the server of that IP address. Now here you could see that for a bank, I'm asking, the host is asking, give me icicibank.com. So the host requests the internet service provider's name server. Like it has some list of commonly used domain names like google.com, youtube.com, Gmail, Facebook, etc. Now these are stored in the cache memory. Now if icicibank.com is not in the cache, means it will ask the top level domain servers. What are top level domain servers? In the sense, they will have the very common like .com, .gov, .in, .uk, and it varies across the world. Like for UK, it will be prioritized for UK, right? And for India, it will be .in. Now the ISP asks the top level domain server whether icicibank.com is there. Now if we could intercept it, if we could predict the request, we know that the host will proceed to icicibank.com. before the top level domains server will give the reply, we are giving our IP address and we are giving our server as a malicious software, ICICICbank.com. The attacker gives this, and the ISP thinks, okay, so this is what I have requested and what I've got. So I'll just store it in the cache and I'll just return it to the host. Now the host enters the login details in the ICIC, like in the malware malicious server, and we'll get the credentials. This is what DNS spoofing it. And yeah, that's it from my side. If you have any queries, you can ask, and thank you for patiently listening to me. Am I audible?
Yes, Agilan. If anyone have
Yeah.
any doubts, you can ask.